Hi, my name is Glaze.
Hi, my name is Jazzy, and welcome to Let's Table That. In today's episode with Tonci, we covered a little bit about the tech talent market, tips on closing candidates, and recruiting at scale.
Stay tuned for our Under the Table segment where Tonci also answers an extra spicy question and we also spill some tea. Tonci.
Hi.
Welcome to the group chat. We are really excited to have you here today. I know Glaze and you actually have worked together previously. Yes. I'm a little outsider here, but it's okay. We'll get to know each other.
Yeah.
Maybe you can say how you and Glaze know each other for the audience that might be curious, and then just a little bit about your background to kick us off.
Just don't age us.
Yes, yeah, no, we'll keep that quiet. So Glaze and I worked together, I think, maybe 12, 13 years ago. We were working together at Loblaws.
Aged you guys.
Yeah, I know.
Just aged us.
We worked together some time ago
Right.
While we were at Loblaws. Glaze was with Shoppers Drug Mart. I was with Loblaws. And then after that acquisition, the two of us got together. We merged. So Glaze was mostly supporting IT. I think you were at Shoppers. I was supporting IT at Loblaws. So then with that, of course, we overlapped quite a lot. Glaze was involved in some of the hiring that I took over. So like there was the analytics team, some of the IT teams as well.
Nice.
So that was some time ago. But that was really, Loblaws was my first big kind of coming of age as a recruiter. I was there for about 5 years and learned a lot and did a lot, and it was a really exciting period of time. So we spent 5 years there. I was on the Loblaw digital team, so I was helping to build out the digital practice for Loblaws. We got spun out of corporate back in, I think it was in 2012. We got spun out of corporate, and then it was, do we build or do we buy? And then eventually we decided to build. By we, I mean leadership decided to build, but
no, me and Tonci decided to build.
And then of course, all the hiring that came out of that. So I spent 5 years there. I did consulting work for about 2 years. So I was doing consulting work with Toronto-based startups. We're talking about in 2017. So these are the times where, a lot of those companies that you still hear about today, that's when they were growing and scaling. Some companies that you no longer hear about. So I was there for about 2 years hiring for a lot of those companies. And then I went back in-house with RBC. I was there for a year helping to build out our digital practice. They were doing some really exciting things back then, and they still are, but I spent about a year there. And after that, I went to Instacart and spent 4 years at Instacart, mostly hiring product management, product design here in Toronto. And then after the acquisition of Unata, they brought me on board to help onboard and build out the product management, product design team in Toronto. And then eventually when we brought that up to speed, I shifted to hiring across the US and across Canada. And then I got moved to different teams that were building out different projects. So there was the ads business that I was helping to staff the kind of founding PMs for, our catalog team, our taxonomy team. And then I left, consulted for about 2 years, and then came back to Instacart, hiring AI, ML, software engineering. And then now I'm at Rootly for the last 4 months, helping to build out this team. So exciting.
Tonci, it sounds like you've been pretty much all around the world, from corporate to startups, going back and forth. Do you have a preference in the environment that you like to work in? And I know Rootly's been doing some great things too.
Yeah.
So also share a little bit about what Rootly is doing.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, they all have their pros and cons. I think that what I always find the most engaging, what I always find the most interesting is just team building. So I've done it with bigger enterprises. I've done it within bigger enterprises, but I've also done it with smaller organizations. And I guess the common thread is I like coming onto teams that are still trying to figure out what, not necessarily what it is they're trying to do, but more how they're looking to hire the people, the right people to help scale the business. That's where I find kind of the most engagement. So it was exciting doing it with large organizations. It's exciting doing it with smaller organizations. There's a common thread there, but what I'm doing right now with Rootly, I mean, this is the smallest organizations I've worked with. This is like a true startup in that we are Series A. We are founder led. That's new to me as well. And we're specializing. I mean, we're in a really interesting space right now in our growth. We're at this act 2 where the product market fit is there. We're focused on call and incident management. It's a really interesting problem space that I didn't think about for, as a recruiter. I've heard of it, but it's not an area that I really focused on. And then when you really go deep into it, you realize there's just so much to do here. There's so many opportunities. And I think Rootly's one of the leaders in the space. So I joined about 4 months ago, helping to hire across our GTM. So we're talking about sales, we're talking about CSMs, customer success managers, solutions, the architects, the folks that are actually onboarding the customers, making sure that they're having, they're getting that world-class experience, and then hiring the engineers that are building products, features, enhancements, functionalities. We're leaning heavily into AI, and that's an area as well that we're expanding into. So there's a lot to do, and I've been pretty busy for the last 4 months, and but it's been great. It's been exciting.
What are some new AI roles that you've came across lately? Because I know it's a buzzword still.
Yeah.
A lot of people say they have an AI role, but it might not really be AI focused.
Yeah, it's I mean, everything really now is touching AI in some way. So direct AI focus roles, sure. I mean, we're looking for AI engineers. These are the folks that are actually looking to leverage AI in different ways to actually solve business problems. But to answer your question, across the board, all of our roles are touching it in some way or another. So our designers are leveraging AI, our product managers are leveraging AI, our product engineers are leveraging AI as well, especially from a platform perspective. So these are the folks that are ensuring the reliability of our platforms. They are very much leveraging AI. So I think the common thread here that I've been seeing is every job now needs to have AI, or at least needs to be thinking about how to leverage AI to increase capacity, or to increase output, or to unblock areas that are being blocked.
Is that important right now in your interview process or recruiting, when you're screening candidates and you're thinking about if they are a good fit or not? Are you considering AI, and how much AI expertise are you really looking at to consider?
Yeah, I think, it's over the last couple of years, a lot has changed with AI. I think in the beginning, there were some areas where people were very, not necessarily opposed to it, but just resistant.
Mm-hmm.
How is AI going to help me? We've been doing this a certain way for so long. But then there were always folks that were very, very much utilizing it. Over the last, I think, 18 months, I've seen like a fundamental change. I don't know right now. I mean, I would say probably the majority of the people I'm speaking to are able to talk about how they're using it, either on personal projects or professional projects. So yes, it is part of, as we're talking to candidates, we're definitely trying to get a good understanding of what they're doing and how they're doing it, but also like where AI is playing into this.
Yeah. I think one thing I personally, when I'm screening candidates and it's an AI focused role, one thing I'm trying to discern is between if they just use AI actively day to day to support their job, which of course is great and encouraged, kind of more in the AI evangelist bucket. But then there's the people that you might need to have had experience building an AI powered product or an LLM powered product. And for me, that's kind of something I'm trying to figure out, like good questions to screen between, because that is, obviously they're not going to give that away right away.
Yeah.
So that's one area I'm trying to focus on.
Yeah, I think AI is very helpful in helping to understand how to evaluate AI. But where I'm being more and more involved in community groups and networking groups, And then through there, I think some of the things that I've really been seeing is I think the industry is learning a lot as much as we are in terms of how to screen for folks with AI, how we're using AI, where are some areas where we need to double click into kind of validating or at least trying to get a better sense in terms of how it's transferable to what we're looking for. I don't have those answers yet. They're difficult to difficult to kind of keep up to date with, but the community I've been leveraging quite a lot, and they're helpful.
Instacart, when you're working there, was it over the COVID period?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So I remember when the Instacart app before, like pre-COVID, I was like, user interface was but during COVID, wow, like they went through a massive upgrade, and I was like, wow, just on that
So that was
like
Tonci
every day, yeah.
hiring.
And I remember, I remember I was like, oh, my friend Tonci works for Instacart. He's hiring all these great engineers. So I thought of you while I was always ordering at Instacart.
Thank you.
So you were at Instacart during a major growth. What does recruiting for scale actually mean in practice?
Recruiting at scale is really looking at, probably the best way to say it is, it's process over heroics. So
I like that. What does that mean?
Yeah, as in the startup, you're still trying to figure out processes, right? You have some in other areas that are very defined and very clear, but then you get a new role that maybe the company's hiring for the first time, and you need to learn, like, how do we evaluate for this based on what the hiring managers are looking to hire, where they're going to fit in, what that relationship with the cross-functional partners, all of those are typically those data points that we're trying to evaluate during an interview process. So a lot of this is just heroics. Just throw more Tonci at the problem, source more, spend more time screening, spend more time with the hiring manager, spend more time researching and leveraging your network. So in that ways, a lot of it is heroics. When you're hiring at scale, it's really that process. It's really just making sure that you have a defined process, a repeatable process, a process that is repeatable in that way, in a way that you could actually evaluate where the bottlenecks are, and you could help tweak those bottlenecks. So process over heroics is definitely going to be the main area. Data-driven decision, of course, is going to be key. Once the process is defined, then you could actually very clearly look at what the pass-through rates are. What do you need to unblock? What maybe are assumptions that were initially made that are no longer valid, and you have more data points as you're putting more people into the process. So then you can modify that. And then it's easier to report, and it's easier to kind of work with your hiring managers to share that. And really the hiring manager enablement is going to be critical here as well. So the hiring managers need to be very much leaned in terms of interviewing. They need to be able to bring their teams much more involved in actually doing the screening. So you need to take that initial function that you as a recruiter are doing, and you need to be able to scale that. And the way that you do it is bringing in partners, bringing in a process, and just bringing in data to help us with that.
Do you think that hiring would be vastly different from, like, let's say a startup who have no processes, and they currently have 10 people right now, but then they quickly want to get to like 50? If you don't have processes in place, you're kind of doubling down. You're trying to get that process together. You're ensuring that the hiring managers are, like you say, leaned in, but they're new managers. Tell me about if there's a scenario like that for you, and how would that be vastly different from that versus like scaling to 100 in a larger organization?
I've always been lucky in that the hiring managers that I've worked with, for the most part, have come from organizations where they've seen great, and they've seen great in terms of great processes or good processes that work for them. They've worked with smart people. They're bringing in a lot of that already there. So they're usually visionaries that know what direction the company should be focusing on, and then with that, there's typically very clearly know what real good talent looks like. Where kind of the nuances on is really just kind of understanding some of those variables outside of like, we need someone who actually is an expert in this, great, but there's a lot that comes into that surrounds that skill. And that's where kind of recruitment will help come in and help clearly define what those other things are. Like, what is leadership going to look like? What is the order of hiring? Bringing in a leader who has no team is very different than bringing in a leader with a team. And that's where that context is that I usually advise my hiring managers, or at least give them some of that context. And then with that, we can kind of modify the process that can help evaluate and bring in people, hopefully that fit in line with that vision. If not, then we kind of keep on iterating it. When it's processed at scale, a lot of that is already defined. In those early days, we're still trying to figure that out.
On that note, I know you've had experience building recruiting functions from scratch, probably doing that hardcore right now at Rootly. What would you say are the first 3 things that come to your mind when you need to build a recruiting function?
Yeah. I mean, the first 3 things that I'm going to be addressing when I first come, maybe it needs to be fixed, but mostly it needs to be tweaked, is really understanding what good looks like, what great looks like. So get a sense of the lay of the land. Who are the people that are already there? How are they performing well? What does that actually look like? What's the knowledge, the skills, and the experience that they bring to the table? And then I need to be able to very quickly take that and work with the hiring managers to actually determine whether the process that we have is evaluating that. Some of the first hires typically are coming in from referrals, or it's people that they've worked with in the past. So you're not really leveraging processes as much as you're leveraging relationships. So there is a lot that I can glean from that in terms of, why are these people special? Why do they jump out at them? Why are these the people that the first hires there are really looking to refer? And then how do I take that and translate into the process? So number 1 is fixing that by understanding that. Number 2 is really just streamlining that process that they currently have and optimizing it. Are we doing too few interviews? Are we doing too many interviews? Is our technical assessment too light? No, it's typically too heavy. And what kind of signal are we getting there? Typically, in the early days of a company, the false negatives are very expensive. It's a lot of time and a lot of effort, and there's probably great talent there that we just might not have evaluated or have not been evaluated in a way to make the team feel like there's enough signal here to make a move. And I think that's a very common theme in early stage startups, especially with some of the companies that I've consulted with in the past. These are some areas where very quickly I'll come in and I'll help advise them on, hey, your process is great in bringing people into it, but maybe not as good as evaluating. And then really building trackers. Just there's so much that lives in Slack. There's so much that lives in email. There's so much that lives in different spreadsheets. So really building those initial trackers. How do we capture that? How do we manage that candidate experience by consolidating all that information into one spot? What is the cadence of reach outs? What are the cadence of feedback? Just really helping to fix that process is always vital. So those are the first 3 that I typically try to address.
Love that. The trackers.
I know.
Recruiter's best friend.
We love spreadsheets.
Yeah,
literally.
Reminders.
Just create anyone for any reason.
Let me just make a database for that.
So I know you've consulted, so you've touched a variety of startups and companies. In particularly for startups, when would you say is the right time, for the most part, to hire an in-house recruiter?
Hiring managers are always going to have to be involved in the recruitment process, regardless of how large the organization is. But in those early days, there's a lot of leverage can be right. A lot of the hiring managers can leverage their relationships and their network in the beginning. So you can kind of build this core density of talent just by networking. But eventually the business does get big enough where, yes, you still need to network, but you just don't have as much time, or you're pulled into a lot of different directions. And that's typically where the bottleneck is how do we continue to hire because we need people, but because we're short of people, we're all stretched thin. And I think that's typically an area that hiring managers or leaders feel very early in the process, and typically they solve by hiring in-house later than they should have. At least that's what I've been seeing. So when is that number? I don't know. I mean, I've been on teams that were 5 or 6, and I felt that that was good. I was supporting teams when they were 50 and 60, and I thought that was good. I think it depends on what you're trying to optimize on, and kind of what that hiring density is going to look like, what the hiring cadence is going to look like. So when you're right about ready to start accelerating, you need to make sure that you can bring on an in-house recruiter that can help solve for that, rather than try to scale without it and then actually start seeing that things are creaky beforehand.
Mm-hmm. What is your philosophy or approach on culture add versus culture fit? That's something that's come up, I think, quite a bit, the difference between culture add and culture fit. Do you believe in it? What's your philosophy on that?
Yeah. It depends on what you're trying to solve for a culture fit. A culture fit can be tempting because it, at any given time, you can look at the organization that you have or the peers that you're working with and say, hey, I need more of these people. But it's a snapshot of the company at that stage. It's a snapshot of the team at that stage. But a year from now, the company is going to be different and the team needs to be different. 2 years from now, the company's going to be even more different. And it needs to look differently. So diversity in experience, diversity in backgrounds, diversity, in demographics, all of that is really important to really take into consideration so that we can continue to think about things in different ways. Culture fit sometimes could be narrowing the focus to what's worked in the past and repeating that. Whereas the culture add is, what are you trying to, that which the person is able to bring in day one is going to be very different than what you'll need that person to bring in 6 months from now and a year from now. So when it comes to an culture add, you're looking at problems that the team is looking to face tomorrow or 6 months from now or a year from now. Culture fit, in my experience, typically it's like, what worked in the past and how do I repeat that? So it's always a mix of the both, but the culture fit is a tempting narrowing of scope.
Mm-hmm. And how you mentioned diversity when you think about experiences, where they come from, like companies. How do you ensure that you're protecting diversity as you're scaling? How do you have those conversations?
In terms of like demographic diversity, in terms of diversity,
I think just in general, how are you protecting diversity as you're scaling?
Yeah, as a recruiter, it's the storytelling. When we're talking to candidates, it's really being able to understand what it is we're looking to hire, and really evaluating that against when we're talking to candidates, evaluating that, and then really that storytelling to the hiring manager. So, typically, it's tempting to go into pedigree. Hey, this person worked for this company. It's a competitor. That's very transferable. Or, hey, this person comes from FANG and that's very transferable. Of course, there is value in focusing on that. But I think it's more important around looking at the when. Like, when was this person at that company? When was this person there's really going to be an indicator of maybe some of the bigger problems that they were solving, and then just bringing that story to the hiring manager. So protecting diversity is really being able to talk to as many people as we can, people that have been through really interesting projects, really interesting initiatives. Maybe they are coming from areas where we haven't been focusing on hiring talent from. But once you start double clicking into that, you could identify that there's a lot of skill there. Like I have a good example in the past where I was looking to hire, we were looking to hire folks on our catalog team. And it was particularly challenging to find folks on the catalog team. For a number of reasons. But one of the things that we were able to discover is that folks that are coming from voice assistant businesses were very transferable. So that is an area that to me in the beginning, I was like, I don't understand how that could be aligned. Like, how is this transferable? But then as you start talking to people from those areas, you learn more and you double click and you start learning more and more. And then very quickly we realize, hey, this is a great source of really strong people who are thinking about this problem in a different way. And they could bring that diversity experience into our organization and help us get better.
I love that.
Yeah, I like that. I think a lot of the times hiring managers they default to what they're familiar with sometimes. And a lot of the times, like specifically with industries, whatever industry that company is in, they might think that should be the same for the hires. Like if you're in finance, like you should hire someone from a bank. Yeah. But like you said, sometimes that switch will give that diversity a thought.
Yeah. I mean, working in e-commerce in those early days when e-commerce just wasn't as mature in Toronto, very quickly I had to learn, how am I going to find, people who are thinking about this problem and solving for this problem, coming from an industry that is not e-commerce. And it was fun.
Was it?
It was. We learned a lot. There was a lot of misses, but eventually you're like, hey, there is something here. So, I was forced to think differently there just because of duress rather than creativity.
Right.
I think stress keeps us young is what we talked about earlier.
Yeah, we were.
Being recruiters.
And so you've been a technical recruiter for many years. In terms of the last maybe year or so, what would you say has shifted in the North American tech market?
Yeah. I mean, as we were talking earlier, AI is just such a big topic, big theme.
Yes.
It's a big wrench that is, I guess it's a tool that is, wrench maybe is a good way to say is that's helping companies, but it's also in some cases hurting the community, or at least we just heard about it recently with some of the layoffs over the last couple of weeks affecting the Toronto market or the Canadian market or just the market in general. So yes, AI, I think there's a ton going on here that's shaken up the industry. The immediate is really, if you're early in your career, I think there's a ton of headwinds. It's the market is being squeezed for recent graduates, folks looking for co-ops and internships, and recent graduates. It's definitely a challenging market for them. I am seeing, return to office is becoming more and more of a fact.
Yep.
I think most recently I was reading that something like 80 to 90% of all jobs that have been posted over a period of time have some sort of hybrid factor as part of it. So I think that's a reality. And then with that, there's a lot of, it's shaking up how families are structured and what people are used to. I'm starting to see like a bifurcation in the market with folks that are fully remote and folks that are hybrid. And there's certain people now will never want to go back remote, and there's also other people that never want to do hybrid. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. That might just be temporary. Maybe it is a means to rebalance headcount. Maybe it's a way to rebalance team structures. But that's definitely a reality. And then I'm also noticing that as headcount is becoming more precious, hiring managers, at least I'm not seeing it for ourselves, but I'm seeing it for people in the industry that I'm speaking to, that headcount is becoming more precious. And as such, those days of generalist hiring are kind of past us. It's all very specialized. If someone, if the company is a very heavy Java development shop, then you need to have Java experience. Whereas before, hey, give me Python, give me Ruby, give me just smart people, and we'll figure out the technology. But I think there's a little bit of there's less risk taking from hiring managers. Because they need to get it right. If you're only going to get one headcount, it's got to be perfect. So I think with that is probably a little bit of narrowing of the scope as well, as what we were talking about when it comes to kind of culture fit. Where it's like, you're hiring people who have worked on this technology, but we'll see. We'll see how it plays out.
Have you found that top talent has been harder for you to access, or it's been maybe easier for you lately? How are your time to fill metrics looking?
Yeah, it's
open that tracker.
Yeah. It's never easy. Time to,
we're really struggling here, guys.
It's never easy. It's, I've seen it when I was consulting, hiring managers be like, oh, why would I use a recruitment agency? There's a lot of talent out there. You're like, yes, there is a lot of talent out there. That's why you probably need a recruitment agency, because there's a lot of conversations that need to be had. There's great people out there. There's people that would be perfect for you, but they're also surrounded by people that might be perfect for other companies and not for your company. So in those days where there's a lot of available talent, evaluating the talent is going to be important. In the days where there's not a lot of talent, that's also challenging, because then you have to find the available talent. You need to, tell the story about why they should come to your company. You need to source more. You need to network more to uncover those people that are maybe passively looking or not looking. When there's a lot of people in the market, it's tough. When there's not a lot of people in the market, it's tough. So it's never easy for recruiters. Maybe AI is going to help us, and it is in some ways, but I think you just, it's always just smiling and dialing and reaching out to folks on LinkedIn, just like the old days.
Yeah.
I think candidates are also they've just become more sophisticated in like what they look for, what kind of company. There's also an emerging market with startups, especially in Toronto, in our ecosystem now. There's just so many startups, AI this, AI that. So it's all these like new grads are like, where should I work? And what's my purpose? What should I look for? So
yeah, there's so many options that they can afford to be more picky.
Yeah. So selling.
Should.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know it's a tough market. And I think it's always been tough. In my 20 years, it's always been a tough market. There's always some sort of headwind or some sort of tailwind. Mm-hmm. I came into recruitment right after the dot-com bust. So I came into 2005 when a lot of companies were starting to hire coming out of those cuts. And then we got hit with the financial crisis in 2007, 2008, and then the taper tantrum, and then 2021, 2022, post-COVID. Always something.
Oh, you remember all your years.
Yeah, you're good.
All I
good.
remember was I started recruiting when, like, I remember being on Yahoo, like the website, and I'm like, what's Yahoo? And then having to use Google, and then they're like, go start a LinkedIn. And I'm like, what's LinkedIn? That's how I remember recruiting, is creating an account on LinkedIn. So I was one of the new early users for LinkedIn.
LinkedIn sent me a notification. I joined in 2006.
Okay, you're really good with dates.
So sometimes this year is going to be my 20-year anniversary.
Do they do something
on LinkedIn? I feel like they should.
They should for you specifically.
I mean, the amount that I've been paying.
We've been
Oh my goch.
For a month.
Those licenses.
Maybe a week.
Those licenses.
Sponsor us, LinkedIn.
Yeah, I was like, either corporate license, like LinkedIn Lite. I've been using it consistently since 2006.
Yeah,
it is helpful though.
But when you pay for it for yourself,
it's a different feeling.
It hurts.
When you get that invoice, you're like, this is precious.
So while we're talking about technical talent, what is your sort of approach to closing senior engineering candidates in competitive markets? Give us some Tonci flair, some Tonci top secrets that you've used in the past with senior candidates that are engineering.
I mean, fundamentally, it's senior, junior. I mean, we just need to understand what what their motivation is. Why are they looking, right? It could be because they're not working, but ultimately they are still looking, those types of candidates, senior candidates, candidates in general are looking to solve a problem by finding a job, especially in the technical space. So of course you're looking for money, you're looking for work-life balance, you're looking for impact, you're looking for growth, learnings, right? It's all of these or some of these. But like number one is just as a recruiter is to really just try to understand what it is they're looking for and aligning it with what it is that we're looking for. Doing that well is important, and it's just having as many of those touch points with candidates as possible. In terms of like interesting anecdotes, I've had so many. There was one candidate I had to speak to their spouse because their spouse was nervous about them quitting.
I get that all the time too. I'm always just like,
yeah,
okay.
And I get it. I mean, there's other people involved. I mean,
I think if there's an element of like relocation for sure.
Okay. No, this was why should it? Yeah.
Like, hey, I gotta drag my wife across the country. Yeah, I need to talk to her about that.
Yeah.
I mean, I declined an offer when like the day before I found out that my wife was pregnant, and I declined an offer. And that's like a life's event that, we
but
were
you
hoping
weren't like,
for
hey,
it.
Wife, can I take this job?
No, it was just it was one of those variables where I was like, it just, I was like, nope, everything's changed. I'm not looking for insecurity in the professional space because I'm preparing for insecurity in the personal space. And having insecurity in both areas was a little bit of a challenge. So I was like, how do I optimize for this? So I stayed longer in the company that I was. Good. It was good, but I think it was the right decision. But no, I've spoken to spouses before where this is why I think that, your spouse will be successful. This is the process that we've done.
Oh, you actually spoke with the spouse.
I had to speak with the spouse.
I was like, you've done that too? Because I haven't.
Yeah.
I've had candidates that say, I need to speak with my spouse, but I never had to speak with the spouse.
I have.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mr. Sales. Damn.
There was that. And then it's just the, the lunches and the coffees and the dinners. It's typically, if it's that close, there is some sort of blocker, and it's less around, I would say, like as a recruiter, it's less around like, I'm not going to convince you to take a job, right? I can't do that, or I shouldn't do that. My job is to really provide you with the data and the information that you need to make the most rational decision for you at that time.
I agree.
Now, how do I do that? Well, sometimes it's doing it over coffee, over dinner, driving out to their house back in the recruitment agency days.
Talking to the spouse.
So I can't convince someone to take a job. Maybe I do without realizing it, but I don't think so. Typically, it's just providing them with that data. So the spouse conversations is one. There's nothing better than when you meet them for a coffee to chat and just, sitting there with them and talking, answering their questions. And then on your way home, you get that DocuSign notification that they signed.
Mm-hmm.
And
I had you gotta wait until they actually walk through the door to make it on their first day.
That's also a nervous one.
That to me, that's my thing. Yeah. Like,
it's never.
You signed the offer. I'm not ready yet. Like I'm not gonna celebrate.
No,
yeah.
I always say it's never a successful hire until they're
after 30 days.
Yeah, in the door.
Yeah.
And then there was a candidate once that declined an offer, and it was myself and the hiring manager, and we were debriefing after of like, hey, what did we do? What could we have done? And the feedback that we both got, we realized, and we're like, I think there's something here that we're missing, or maybe the candidate's missing. And we invited the candidate to lunch, and we sat down with them and we're like, listen, what's the blocker here? And they told us it's the technology that we were using. And we're like, the hiring manager's like, well, I'm not married to that technology. You tell me what you want to use. The person's like, I want to use ABCD. And they're like, great, we're startup. Take it, do it. We'll buy it.
Wow.
So that was one where the person declined. It was a clear no. But we recognized that there's something here. There's something a little bit more that we can do. And very quickly we realized that we were anchoring on all this other stuff, but not on technology. And it was important to the candidate. And we told them, you tell us what you need. And they told us, and we did it. And that person was successful and is now a leader at a different company.
Nice. It's a happy ending.
When you say technology, is just like a small software that you use, or was it they get a Mac instead of a
No, what we were using was like, it was like an older technology, and they were a little bit worried that gave signal that we weren't thinking about innovation in a certain way.
That's totally valid.
Yeah. So it was more around, oh, you guys are using that, which means you think about your tech stack in a different way. And we're like, no, we're using that because we are, but once we grow, we'll blow it up if we need to. Like we'll cut it out and put stuff in. That type of innovation, that type of like movement is much easier when you're in like an earlier stage company. But yeah, that was a deal breaker for them. And we're like, cool, we'll do it, and we did it.
Great ending.
Yeah. I think a common thing I've heard is sometimes startups will say, in terms of compensation, that they can't compete with big tech on comp. I'm curious your perspective if that's actually true. I know obviously it is dependent on companies and startups, but if you could generally say.
Comp is an interesting one when you're comparing comp, because I think there's a number of different factors that come into it. But of course, people work for, pay your bills, and you need a job to work, you need to work you need a job in order to earn money. That's always going to be important. It's such a personal thing to a lot of people. But comparing startup to big tech year for year, like if you're comparing year one in both, then yes, big tech will win, right? They have liquid equity. That liquid equity you can put into your mortgage, or there's a bonus, or they have just more money and they could pay more. So year one versus year one, big tech wins. Year two versus year two, they might still win, but very quickly they start merging. So the way that I would say we can compete with big tech is if you break compensation over a 4-year window and divide it by 4 and look at the average and really kind of present that to the candidates of like, hey, this is why we feel that this is going to be a better opportunity. In the startup space, you could accelerate your career much quicker. You could probably get promotions much quicker. You get equity. That equity is illiquid, but there's usually more multipliers that can come onto that equity that pays dividends in the back end. So no, we can't compete with big tech day one, but day 2, day 3, day 4, yes, we can. Typically, people won't be coming to a tech startup if they think that the company is not going to be growing. So moving to a startup, you're betting on the company, but you're also betting on yourself. And some people have the luxury to do that, and they're willing to take a pay cut or a temporary pay cut, but kind of get the benefit on the back end. Other people can't make that call for personal reasons, and it's tough. But like for like, I think we can compete with them over the long term.
I think we got a gist of that closing playbook when you just started talking about
the 4-year.
Yeah. I like that part that you.
But I mean, if we're optimizing for money, then a lot of us wouldn't go to university because you're not making money in university. You're spending money. But the balance is, hey, we're doing that so we can get this benefit on the back end, right? You can earn more money coming out of university, and you can kind of accelerate your career in theory. But for some people, they can't do that.
Question actually for both of you. I've heard it both ways, where startups can't compete with the big tech. And then I've also heard people say, no, go to a startup. They have a lot of money. You'll get a way higher salary than what you would in corporate. Have you guys heard both of those before?
Yeah. And
it depends on maybe where corporate. I mean, there are industries
there's
that
some corporate
notoriously
that
under.
We can't name.
I think we all know one.
We can't name industries that we know because they have their compensation bands. They're not going to be able to.
It's their how we think about like tech forward It's probably another way of putting it. Tech forward versus like less tech forward. Consultancy always pays well, right?
That's one thing I think.
But there's the
The
work-life
trade-off.
balance. There's
What's
the
the
trade-off.
trade-off? Yeah. There's the trade-off is.
What's the trade-off for you?
The trade-off. Oh, with
Consulting?
getting more money. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just working your ass off, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Working
work-life
60
balance
hours,
and
yeah.
traveling and the ups and downs of projects.
It's a completely different lifestyle. And you're working with multiple clients. Yes, you're probably getting a ton under your belt with experience and being able to work with different types of departments and leaders. But that's going to come at I feel like for me, if I were to start over, yes, I would do consulting like my first 3 to 5 years of my career.
Yeah.
But then I would want to specialize or niche real quickly after that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, recruitment agency is like that. In the beginning, it's just
That's pretty much probably what I did.
it just grind. It's
Yeah.
it's great. You learn so much. It's such a career accelerator. Maybe not a career accelerator, but
Knowledge based.
it's a knowledge accelerator.
Correct.
You just learn so much just because you're just seeing so much and you're doing so much.
Yeah, you're
and
just thrown into
you're thrown
everything.
Yeah. I always hear that from recruiters. I've never worked at an agency though. Only in-house or startups. Yeah. Starting up.
So we could I can handle more stress because I started in an agency, I feel.
It's known for the cutthroat environment.
It'd be interesting to see, would we be,
Would we feel as successful or as...
It would be you learn a lot and the expectations are so high when you're in a recruitment agency. And I feel like that just that pressure that you have, it just continues throughout the rest of your career. And you're is that maybe... do we just put that on ourselves because we learned that way?
No, that's
is
literally
it the trauma.
It's
the trauma.
That's a thing though.
I don't feel like I'm doing well unless I feel like I'm stretched in a million different areas.
That's a thing. My one friend, I want to say her name, but she was working at an agency, and then before that, what's it called when you call people when they owe you debt? Debt collectors. So she's worked at those two settings, and now when she works in-house now, and if she doesn't have enough recs, it eats at her and she feels so weird. She needs at least 20 to feel like she's stable, her job's stable.
She sounds like a recaholic.
Yeah.
Oh no, she's our grinder.
As soon as you feel like you're ahead, you're like, this doesn't feel well.
Something feels wrong.
Something feels wrong. I'm doing something wrong. I'm missing something. I don't think that's
not healthy.
No,
it's not.
You're like, ooh,
it's it's like when you have no adrenaline rush anymore, something is off.
Yeah.
I worked for a company and I was sitting at a desk and there was a phone on that desk because of course there was.
This lead up. There was a phone on the desk, guys. Okay.
There was a phone
exist
on
anymore.
the desk. And I just, every day at the same time, for weeks, I would get a call from a collection agency at that phone. And I would always
personally to you?
No, it was to the person who that phone was allocated to. I don't know if that person was there or not. And I would always say, I am not that person. I work here. Every day you call this desk, I will answer it. And I am not that person. Yeah. And I kept, and it was for weeks and weeks. And I was like, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pay this person's debt.
Yeah. But I think because you pick up the phone, it on their end, it's like, oh, this person's picking up. So we got to put them on the rotation again the next day.
On the topic of recruitment vanity metrics.
Yeah. So that's
I made a contact. Click.
Yeah. Yep. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So that's why you got called every day, I think.
I thought I was helping her.
Oh.
That was not.
No, you weren't.
False hope.
What's one hiring belief that's changed for you since you've been working now in recruiting? And we won't say how many years exactly. If people want to know, they can check your LinkedIn.
Yeah.
But in the time that you work, what's hiring belief that's changed for you?
Pedigree. I think we kind of touched upon it. In the beginning, it was like, hey, you're looking for folks from the industry. You're looking for folks with the industry, with that specific technology, or, I mean, not even complicated, just like find me Fang, someone from Fang or Fang Plus or tech forward companies. And those people are great. There's a lot of really good people that are coming from those areas, but that in itself is such a narrowing of scope. There's so many really smart, talented people that I've hired that did not go to university, that did not get their PhDs or masters, that have come from industries that I just would not have thought of as being innovative. Even myself, when I went to, I was a little bit hesitant to go into retail. I was like, retail, like what's retail doing that is really interesting? And then I realized there's a ton that they're doing that's interesting. Yeah. It's low margin, so you need to move quickly. You need to be efficient, or as efficient as possible. Those were some of those perceptions that I had that I used as crutches in the beginning. But then as you get more experience, you realize there's much more to this. Yeah.
So I think people, especially hiring managers or the ones that are new, they feel that, okay, if we're hiring for Pedigree, if they have retail to retail, we match that up. It's the fastest way to get a hire. Yeah. But sometimes it's the fastest way to get a hire, but it's not the best talent out there. You really got to dig. And it can be anybody from outside of your current industry that you're missing out on. That's the thing.
Or they might be the best, but they'll have the same perspective.
Exactly.
As the rest of your team.
Correct.
It's that culture fit rather than the culture add that we talked about. I've one of the luxuries that I have as in my experiences, I've worked in-house, but I've also worked agency and consulted. When you work in-house, you work with the people you hire, and you get to see great, and you'd be like, hey, I was part of that. I did that. And you can see these, you can see them do really well, and they become hiring managers, and you hire for that hiring manager, and that's a person you hired. And I feel like that's really opened up my perspective on like broke some of the biases that I used to have in terms of Pedigree.
Okay, Tonci. So we always do a segment. It's called Under the Table. Okay. I just pulled it under the table. So basically you can just choose a question. It's a little bit more fun. Okay. Maybe than the ones we've been doing.
Do I get to ask you them, or is this for me?
It's for you.
We could answer too, but yeah, it's for you.
All right. What's something HR or people leaders often see coming before anyone else does, but can't always say it out loud? I mean, I can say it out loud, but it's an interesting data point. As a recruiter, you get people from companies just blast applications all at once, and you're like, something happened. Someone got promoted, or someone didn't get promoted, or some business is shutting down. So there is this, we get a sense of what's happening in the market just based on like trends that we're seeing with who's applying, who's not, who's absolutely doesn't even want to talk to you because there's really cool stuff happening in the company. But no, for in the company, it's culture. You just you have a sense of who's leaned in and who's not leaned in, who is involved in referrals, who, not necessarily who, but like you get a sense of what's happening with the organization based on the amount of energy and involvement that they have in hiring. And when things are good and people are excited and people have the time and the interest in being, heavily involved in recruitment, it's great. Other times you're like, there's something going on. Maybe people are overworked. Maybe we're understaffed. Maybe there is some sort of headwind, and you can feel it.
More? Thank you so much. Do you want to do one more?
No. I can do another one if you want.
Okay, do another one.
We do another one. All right. Can we do all of them, or are you guys going to run out of ideas for next? All right. This one's for you. What's the unspoken rule about job descriptions that candidates should often know but don't?
This is a good one for you, because we've had a lot of HR people.
Oh, really?
No, this is for you. I'm happy.
That's what you meant.
Job descriptions are... it's one of the
what was the question again?
Yeah, I need that again.
What's the unspoken rule about job descriptions that candidates should often know but don't?
I think it's, you don't need to match every requirement to be able to be considered. I think a lot of candidates get hesitant to apply if they don't meet everything. And statistics wise, women actually feel more insecure for, I don't know if insecure is the right word, but.
Yep. That was the one thing that's probably the top thing I would say is number of years of experience for, I've had women come to me and say, oh, I don't know if I should apply. It says 5 years. I only have 4. I only have 3. And I'm like, but you look at your experience.
Yeah.
You bring a lot to the table. So I feel like that's the one thing people do not, especially women or minorities, do not apply because they feel like they don't have enough experience.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think years of experience is important, but the caveat around like the years of experience doing what is
and
more
where
important.
too.
Where, because like you can have 8 years of experience. Someone could have 20 years of experience, but maybe have never seen this problem.
Yeah.
Great. They can be good and they can leverage their past experience, but someone that maybe has only been thinking about that for 2 or 3 years is going to come in with much more relevant experience than maybe someone who's done less of it. So yeah, I'd agree. And job descriptions are always challenging.
Yeah.
When it comes to, getting everything into a 1-pager.
I know.
Do people still do that? Getting all their experience on 2 pages? I feel like I expect
like a resume.
Mix. Yeah.
I have some hiring managers that only like 2-page
pages.
resumes, which is like, I get it. It's just sometimes
it's
difficult.
take.
Yeah, it really is. Because I agree to not run on with so many bullet points because you know how it is when you're looking through.
You collaborated.
Yeah.
with other
I'll be
leaders.
intimidated by resumes that have like 20 bullet points for one role. Like I don't want to read everything there. It's too much. It's overwhelming. Like you need to synthesize there.
Well, there's also now like the job descriptions created by AI. The applications and the resumes are created by AI.
Know.
So it's like AI. And
yes.
We're all kind of watching.
Yeah. It's true.
Well, thank you so much, Tonci. This was great. We really enjoyed having you. Thank you for sharing all of your recruitment goodness with us. And we're rooting for you at Rootly.
Yes, thank you.
See what I did there?
Yeah, I did.
That's not good.